one if approached in that fashion. Trials and tribulations await. Walls that social normality had placed before you block the light of realism from shining through. The tedious process of chipping away at the walls let streams of light peek through. A light so bright it singes the skin to the degree one has to reconstruct the wall to block it. In short, you can't handle the truth alone. But through the networking of information, together we can rise above the wall before you, filtering the light to a tolerable level.
What's up, brothers and sisters? Truth is in the dorms of the tinfoil hat, because we don't believe in magic bullets or buildings that fall like that. I'm Kenneth Webb, and you're listening to ChangeDaChannel, broadcasting live and direct on Truth Frequency Radio on this special edition of medicinal marijuana. And I do have to warn you people, it is Monday, January 27th, 2014, and a birthday party has seemed to have made its way to my house. Okay, so there might be a lot of background music. I'm back in my office and everything, and but it is buck wild. The last couple of hours has got off the chain, you know, with the birthday parties and with the birthday party and all this stuff. So if there's any background noise, I do apologize. But anyhow, today is a special edition of medicinal marijuana. And what I wanted to do today, because there's a lot of articles out there on, you know, all through the mainstream media and everywhere, you know, with all of the new states who have medicinal marijuana, all of the upcoming elections for that, all of, you know, Colorado and Washington just having it just straight out legal and stuff. And I really wanted to share with you guys my story. Because for, you know, 20 some years now, I've did a lot of research in it, and I don't talk a lot about it. And I really don't, because I mean, there's so much other stuff going on out there, you know, NSA, you know, so the spine, you know, the puppets out there in government, you know, are doing the puppet masters biddings and breaking all of these other things down. There are a lot of older things, you know, that have been around. So I really don't talk a lot, you know, because a lot of people are always like, well, you know, that's the least of our worries, change the channel, you know, and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know, if you knew how deep the rabbit hole goes, you know. So today I really wanted to, I'm going to try to open up the phone lines too. And I tried to connect. Let me see if I can connect right here. Let me see if I can add this to us. I tried to add the phone lines on a second ago, and it just went out. And that happens sometimes. It's probably, and I do have the phone lines on right now. And that's 866-37-TRUTH. That's 866-378-7884. In the second half of the show, I'm going to have Joe Joseph, the man, the myth, the legend, here on the show with me, talking about this very thing that we're talking about. But what I wanted to do this show is I wanted to really share with you my life as far as marijuana. You know, it's like, you know, back in the day, you know, when I was younger, I remember sitting around and this is what drew me in. I went into the military in 1987. And, you know, I dropped out of high school. I went into the military, you know, straight out. I didn't even have a GED, because you didn't even need a GED back in the day, you know. And all I wanted to do my life through the 80s, I was a Reaganite, you know, the Cold War era baby. All I wanted to do was go into the military. I wanted to be a war hero. I wanted the ribbons. I wanted to do my part for this country, you know, and all this stuff. And that's, you know. And my father, who was, you know, he was in the military. He was 82nd Airborne, all of that. And, yeah, he was the lifeline through that. In later years, he passed away in 1990, but he always said things that later in life that really clicked in. He was always like, you know, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to go in the military? Why do you want to do this? I mean, he supported me in anything that I did. Excuse me. So back then, I went into the military, and then when I came out, and I smoked weed, you know, during, you know, the early 80s, you know, from 1981 was my first experience smoking marijuana, actually, you know, and I was 11 years old, you know, and you know, back then, it really wasn't that big of a hooey. It really wasn't, you know, and not that my parents knew that I was doing this or anything like that, guaranteed. Excuse me. But, through those early part of the 80s to the whole drug, the whole, Nancy Reagan, the whole thing came in to the thing, you could actually get caught with a little bit of weed, by a cop, and they just, they let you go. They take your stuff and then they let you go and all this stuff. But, as years went by, I went into the military, and then when I got out of the military and stuff like that, I got into a band and I started playing music, because I've been playing music since 1974. And, when I got to play music, I started smoking again. And the whole thing was, there's a lot of people would sit around, a lot of my friends would sit around and go like, I'm going to kill a few brain cells. Right. And I actually wondered if that was true the entire time, because everybody said it. And there come a point where I was just like, really? And then, after I got out to military and everything, I was like, I wanted to go to college. I got my GED and I wanted to go to college and everything. And there's one thing I really wanted to research. It was before the internet and all this stuff, so you had to do it on the hard scale. You go to the microfishes, and you look up your stuff. You go to microfishes and you look up all the articles, or anything that I could find on it when I went to college, when I went back to college, or when I first started college anyway. I got my GED and I went to a community college, and, get the GI Bill and everything. My whole plan was to go to community college for a couple of years, and then I was going to go, to a university and everything. And, the one thing that, just hanging out with my friends was like, everybody would always say, I'm going to burn some brain cells. And I was just like, is that really true? Do you really burn brain cells? I mean, I know we burn brain cells all the time in natural stuff. So, it was like a big thing when I went to college, because you have all these resources at the time. At the time it was a big resource, not like now where you got the internet and you can look up anything you want to look up. In college you got a lot more back then. So my first like English papers and all of that I wrote, psychology papers, everything that I wrote, I would do research on, does marijuana really kill brain cells, and why is the real reason that marijuana is illegal? And you go through history and you see that like, wow, 3000, BC, all of these years ago that it was used for all of these different things, wow, all of a sudden, throughout history, did it become illegal to use. And, excuse me. So I wrote a lot of, my college papers on this from research that I did, and that was, like I said, it was back before the internet. And the first paper that I actually wrote in my English composition composition class was English 101, was the real reason why marijuana is illegal. And the first paper I wrote, I went through and I saw, like, back after the stock market crash in 1929, a lot of industrial businesses got together. A lot of the pharmaceutical industry and synthetic industries and all of this got together. Wood pulp paper groups got together because they were like, they needed to come together as groups to stay alive after the stock market crash. A lot of businesses went out. And the group that really got together that pushed it the most was like a group of cats. It was the Hearst newspaper group, which owned like 70% of the Florida Panhandle in wood pulp. And they had a flagship paper. You had DuPont, which, not at that time, but coming up, had a German scientist who had defected to the United States that isolated the synthetic version and came through with the same thing. Because at the time, which, like I said, back in the day, I didn't have a clue. I'm sitting there along with everybody else, sitting there thinking like, I'm going to kill a few brain cells, like with everybody else. I have a clue what's real, because that's what's been pushed to us by these cats, like the Hearst newspaper, who started, the whole reefer madness campaign that would say, oh, I'm going to smoke a little bud. Next thing you know, you're robbing granny and killing granny for some money and stealing her purse for some heroin that you're going to jack. And all of these kinds of things. But what it was, honestly, and this is a fact, people. I mean, these things don't happen. And you will still hear these kinds of stories today with what's going on today, But what it was going on then is DuPont had that German scientist that came over and had isolated the actual synthetic version of hemp so that they could make, all the things you see there, the fire retardant materials that fire departments use, all of the Kevlar. Kevlar is, because they knew at the time that actual hemp would make a particle chipboard that would rival steel at the time, and which is a big innovation at the time. So they all got together, and and the whole group, and they got together and they did this, and DuPont, with the Teflon and all of this stuff, which later years, like I said, when I was in college, I actually took a job over the summertime, and I went and I did duck cleaning service with a group that was going out there. It was like Dusty Ducks. It was the name of the thing, out of Lynchburg, Virginia. And they would go do duck cleaning up at DuPont in Richmond, Virginia. And what happened was while I was up there, when I walked into the place, it looked like an actual hemp factory. It was all of these spools of strand of just like what hemp would make, hemp particle chipboard that would rival steel back in the day. They had the strands of all of these rolls of this thread that was very strong. And I saw it after I had been in college, and I'd researched this stuff and I wrote papers on it, and I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my goodness, As far as industrial, it was like, it blew me away. I was like, here's everything that is really big, from Kevlar and everything else, from fire retardant stuff that the firemen wear and everything that, that's there. And here is the synthetic hemp factory. And I was just totally blown away, and I was like, wow, I'm experiencing this. This is real. It's not just the research. It is real. And so I knew right off the bat from all the research that I had did, it's like, yeah. And there was all the synthetic medicinal versions of marijuana even back then. I mean, this goes way back. And I'm actually working on a debunk this right now on this whole thing. Because it's insane. The information is totally out there, and it's not even getting into the medicinal properties of this, which I have experienced and I am going to get into. I mean, and the thing about it is like you could tell just by the industrial level of it, of what happened. I mean, you had Flagship Paper, the Hearst newspaper. These are the cats who put out the Reefer Madness campaign. Back in the day, the old Hearst newspaper, they owned 70% of the Florida Panhandle. And, they're the ones who did the Reefer Madness campaign. So, and you can tell, I mean, and we know corporations now. If you look at corporations now and you look at Big Pharma, and look at all of these cats out there, what they do. It's all about survival. So after the stock market crash of 1929, I mean, these cats got together and they put their head together. What is our biggest competitor? What is our biggest competitor out there? And it was hemp. It was definitely, pharmaceuticals, which had been around for so long. I mean, look at it now. Now marijuana, as we know, is labeled a Schedule 1 drug by the U.S. federal government. Now, Schedule 1 drug, substances or chemicals are defined as drugs that are not currently accepted as medical use, has any medical use, or is highly potential for abuse. Now, Schedule 1 drug are the most dangerous drugs, right, of all the drug schedules, with potentially severe psychological and physical dependence, right? So some examples of Schedule 1 drugs are heroin, LSD, marijuana, ecstasy, and peyote. So it is worthy to note that meth, cocaine, and Ritalin are Schedule II drugs, being considered that less abuse potential than Schedule 1. Now remember, Schedule 1 is with no currently acceptable medical use, but for some strange reason, they exclaim that the synthetic version is. Now, Marinol, by its definition, is a synthetic THC, Delta-9 THC, which is a natural component of cannabis sativa. But, and look at the history. You go through the history of marijuana. We're talking 3000 BC that has been used all the way up. Even in 1850, marijuana was added to the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, as an accepted drug. It's been used. Now, a lot of people, and we're going to get into this in the show. We're going to get into this in this show because I'm going to tell you what, over, my lifetime, I have been, doing a lot of research and hands-on research. I've dealt with thousands per day of medicinal marijuana patients. I have been to DuPont and I have researched, for a lot of years this issue. And I know I don't talk about it a lot. I really don't. I don't talk about it enough because there's so much going on out in the world. But I want to dedicate this edition of Change the Channel to this because there's so much, and I got to debunk this coming out on this as well because, how in the world are you going to sit here and say it has no medicinal value when it has for thousands of years? The seed is second only to the soybean in nutrients. The leaves are 70% nitrogen, which is a soil replenisher, so that when you grow it outside, you can replenish the soil that you grew it on. So it's not taken away. And we're going to get into the medicinal values like that. It's so many combinations of things with this one plant that you can see. People out there who don't really, they accept it as like some drug. And, that's what's been put into your head, man. It really has, a bunch of stoners, this, that, and something else, man. It's always made me sick because I always felt, even from the days when I went to college and I really researched this thing, when I was thinking the same daggone thing, it's like, well, I'm going to kill a few brain cells, and all this stuff. This is not true, people. It's BS, you take aspirins, you take Tylenol, everybody takes all this crap and they put it from Big Pharma. But guess what, guys, man? There is a wonder plant, and it is a wonder plant. There is no other plant on this planet that is the same thing, equivalent, the entire freaking plant. And it's not just the plant. As far as industrial use, as far as hemp, as far as the seed, as far as the soil replenisher of the leaf, it is the actual strain. It is the actual phenotype of those strains. And within those strains that have such properties, such different properties that, it's like the common person, there is no way that you would even know. And, you would never even know that of all the things it would do because of what has happened by the same people that we always talk about, all of these things, all the bad guys out there, all of the corporations out there. If they say it's bad, guess what, guys? It's not. There's something there. There is absolutely something there. And after I got out of college, I'm going to go on with my story right now because I really want to get to the medicinal parts. But, when I got out of college and everything, I did enough research as far as industrially and, as far as synthetically that was just like, wow, man, there was no doubt in my mind whatsoever that it was a bunch of BS and this was nothing but another corporate and industry, cover up of something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years that people have used for all of these different things, and, but they wanted the money. It's all about the power, the money, and all of this stuff. And, so when I got out, I ended up moving out to California. And when I moved out there, I did a bunch of activism out there, and I went out and I went to Iraq in 2003. Now, I used to be an animal rights activist, used to be a vegan, used to be all this stuff, and I was into more, and I didn't really care about people. I lost my flavor with people because, it's like I look at people as like, hey, we're just a virus on this planet. Look at how we destroy. Look at everything we do. All we do is chop down stuff. We pollute everything. All we do is destroy. Is there anything good that people do on this planet? And so I just really got away from people. And then when I went to Iraq in 2003, and I was like, if people don't care, being the dominant species on this planet, if I can't get people to care about people, how in the world are we going to get people to care about the environment or care about animals or care about any life or have any compassion whatsoever? I mean, really. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So, when I went there, I was like, it was the first human rights kind of thing that I did, and that was the conclusion that I came to. Now, when I got back from Iraq, I got a job at, a medicinal marijuana club in California. It was in Oakland, California, and it was the biggest one in the world at the time. And I've traveled the world and I've seen, Amsterdam and all this stuff. And, I actually got hooked up, a third generation grower and who showed me how to grow medicinal marijuana, different strains, taught me about the strains, taught me about like all this stuff. So I was really into it because, through the latter part at that time of my life, I was very interested in this plant because, it helped me out with a lot of things. When I got back from Iraq, I was definitely suffering from PTSD. I was suffering from insomnia. I could not sleep. All I could see is faces in my sleep. I could not sleep. And it did. Certain strains, certain phenotypes helped me. Other types of marijuana would keep me up, and I always found that was weird. Everybody talks about marijuana like it's this one thing. Here's this one thing. Well, it made me paranoid when I smoked it, or, when I did this, it did that, and, it's just like certain phenotypes, certain strains, will enhance appetite. The other ones will suppress appetite. There is a mathematical equation. There's a chemical equation in everything. And we're coming up on about 2 minutes left in this part of the segment. But when we come back, Joe Joseph's going to join me, and I want to continue on with breaking down the real chemistry of it, because there's so many sides of it. I mean, it's infinite. It is so infinite that, and when I got a job at like I said, the biggest club at the time, Amsterdam. Anybody who, knows anything about weed will know Amsterdam out in California. Well, this club is one of the clubs that put it on the map. It's the biggest one. I was a marketing and merchandising manager, regional manager for multiples from San Francisco, Oakland, Ukiah, San Diego, Los Angeles stores. And my big thing was, learning from the growers, because the growers would laugh at me too. Even the actual third generation growers would laugh at me, and they was like, there's no way you could take, a specific strain of weed and say, hey, this does this for this person. This, alleviates pain. This does this. And I didn't believe them. I was like, there's no way, because, I wasn't, I was into growing and I was learning to grow and I was really learning, from them everything that I possibly could, but I was also learning from the patients. I was learning from all these different patients out there who had all these conditions. I would see over 1,000 patients a day, every single day that I worked, all over the West Coast. And I'm telling you, I listened to them, and that was the most important thing, is seeing what worked for them, and then taking that. And what I would do was, being a merchandising and marketing manager, I would put together different medicinal kits to see how that will work for them, whether it was affordability or whatever it was, or whatever, the conditions was, just to research. Anyhow, we're getting ready to go to break, and we're going to continue this special edition of Medicinal Marijuana. I'm Kenneth Webb, and you're listening to Change Channel. On this special edition, broadcasted live and direct on True Frequency Radio. I'll catch you guys on the other side. And we are back. I'm Kenneth Webb, and you're listening to the ChangeDaChannel, this special edition of Medicinal Marijuana. And joining me is the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Joseph. What's going on?
Oh, come on.
Oh, you man. Know it, man. You don't want to.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, but good to be here, man. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no problem, man. And like I was saying before the break.
Yeah.
When I worked at those clubs, man, I seen so many different cases, so many different types of people, all over, the western border there in California, all the way from Utah to San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland, who had all of these things. And even the growers, like I said, and I was learning from, growers and learning everything and anything that I possibly could. And, even they thought that I was ridiculous because, they knew how to grow, but the one thing that they would always say was the myth, which was that, you cannot label one specific weed for a specific condition. But
right.
What I found was it wasn't necessarily that you couldn't grow something that would alleviate this or that. But what it was it's all your intake. It's just like, your dosage, how you consume it. But what I did see was a lot of things that did some miraculous things. I seen, one strain of weed, and this was really put me over the top with my conviction of it was a specific strain of train wreck. And I know a lot of people out there probably heard of this weed out there, train wreck, but the thing about it was, it's back during then, which was probably about 2004, 2005-ish, this specific time before they get strained. And that's the thing that, that the growers didn't take into calculation, is a lot of times when you grow, things get strained out. You use the same mother plants, you grow from a seed, you grow your mother plant, you continue to grow and you clone and clone. And the thing about it is, all those medicinal properties will evolve and they will change. But this specific strain did miraculous things, taking full-blown AIDS patients who had pneumonia in their lungs, and they allowed them to cough up, whatever it was. They were allowed to cough up that whatever mucus, whatever fluid they had in their lung, more so than anything else that was given to them, till it gave their body and their immune system enough time. It's like AZT treatments for the AIDS patients who, most of the time they die of malnutrition because they don't eat. And a lot of marijuana out there, you might have the same strain of marijuana, and one phenotype might give you the munchies and make you have its appetite enhancer, and there'll be the same strain that has a phenotype within that, which is like subgroups basically. For people that don't know what a phenotype is, it's subgroups of the same strain that would be appetite suppressant. And so I start seeing that. So I was like, wow, man, these girls don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they know how to grow, no doubt about it. They can grow it, whatever it is, they can grow it to its pristine, form. But as far as getting into that, the patience is where it at. They will tell you where it is. And from cause they have to do it, they have to go through and, research themselves to see what works best for them. I've seen patients who, like what we used to call south of the border, which was Mexico, which is basically a sativa. You're down there, basically, but the whole thing it's not one strain. It's all sorts of strains and different plants compressed into a compressed block, basically, so they can transport it. So you don't know what in the world you're getting.
It's brickweed.
Right, brickweed. And the thing about it is like a lot of that sativa would make you get the munchies, make you, this way, it'll relax you more. A lot of the indica, which is more Afghani kind of terrain grown stuff, or where the original comes from that is grown, more of that is the indica. And
I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
This is a very serious question because I think it has repercussions nationwide. But you were saying that, what is it? The sativa brings on more of your appetite, your hunger, that type of thing. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And it's more psychedelic too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then let's just say, for example, because this is my observation. I think that everybody getting fat in this country isn't because they sit around playing Xbox. It's because that everybody is a closet pot smoker and they just don't say it. And that's really what it all boils down to. Because everybody does it, but nobody does it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. You shouldn't be embarrassed of it. They've made it. It's just like they want to make, guns and smoking and whatever it is that people do. I mean, we heard Eric Withholder talking about, like, remember how we made cigarettes, to where we had to push people out in the parking lots and they're embarrassed and all this stuff. That's the way we need to make guns. We need to make you embarrassed that you have a gun. We need to brainwash. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and the thing about it is, it's infinite. It's so infinite of like the many things. And people will say all day, people just want to get high. Now, when I worked, like I said, with thousands of people every day. And I'm talking about, people that everybody knows. I mean, from Brad Pitt to Snoop Dogg. I'm talking about, the Hollywood cats too, to the regular people out there. Everybody had a reason for using it. Now, if you take that, it's like, people just want to get high. Well, why do they just want to get high to start with? What do you want them to do? You want them to go see, a psychologist, somebody like that, and get some for their anxiety? So they're going to get, Vicodin or Xanax or Valiums and all of this stuff. Well, guess what? This plant can do the same thing, and there is no side effects. And a lot of people out there will not use it. And and some serious stuff, cancer, glaucoma. I mean, there's so many things. It's infinite. Every single ailment that people have, there is something in this infinite plant. In this strain.
Jedi claims not these things.
Yeah, the Jedi do. The Jedi knows what they talking about. See, they was on it. See, and the thing about it is, it's like dosage. It's like you don't take a bottle of daggone Valiums or Xanax or something like that. You don't do that. Then you didn't overtook. You took more than you was. Then you're going to have all these adverse side effects. And it's also, you smoking a joint. Are you hitting a vaporizer? Are you hitting a bong? Are you using edibles? Are you using an elixir? Are you, what is it? Are you using a pill form? I mean, what is it? Are you using hash? You're using a keef? There's just so many things within the one plant. And it doesn't just go to how your consumption, whether it's an edible, it's a brownie, or it's an elixir that you drop under your tongue, or a joint that you smoke, a bong, or you're using, the vaporizer or whatever it is. It's got to be a dosage, and it's also got to be how you consume it. And it's also not only got to be all of those factors involved, it's got to be what strain are you using? What phenotype within those strains are you using? This is the thing. This is why Big Pharma, this is why it has been illegal. And the only reason why they're going to let it legal now is because they're going to play it out to be some dumb stuff. And you're going to have Philip Morris, going to have pharmaceutical companies are going to come out there with some crap that's not really going to help you.
Marijuana M.
Right. And you know, the growers who know how to grow so precise the strains that they're growing, and they know how to do an awesome job on it. If you want the purest organic stuff, they know how to do it. But the fact of it is like they don't know which one to grow for specific things or to how to label it. If there was more, you had the scientists that are putting all this crap and all of this big pharma and all this stuff that actually took this plant, and you had a really good group of people that actually sit out and you know, an agency of some sort that sit down and really figure this thing out. It would blow our minds at things that this could do. I mean, it's amazing.
I agree, man. I agree with you. You know, Yoda is particular. He likes the indica himself. Yoda, what does the indica make you do? That's what I thought. Yeah, see, he gets the munchies and stuff. But that's cool. You know, here's some interesting facts. You know, since we're talking about marijuana, I want to bring up this. Everybody should know out there that alcohol is legal. It's also not exactly the most safe thing in the world if you want to compare it to marijuana. Marijuana is virtually impossible to overdose on. You'd be my hero if you could take in a hit that would cause you to OD, because it'd be the equivalent of smoking like 37.5 pounds in, I don't know, like 20 minutes.
Yeah, what they did was 1968, 1969.
Did they try?
Air Force.
I'll tell you.
No, what they did is they took a bunch of monkeys, and what they did is force fed them through gas masks, more smoke than any human being could consume in a month, in a matter of minutes. And then they said, you know, to cause brain damage. That's why I forgot to say that when I was back on, like, when my first thing that took me into the realm of research on this issue was, you know, killing brain cells. Where did that come from? And that was one of the things I found was, like, you know, they took all these monkeys and they force fed them in a matter of minutes, more smoke than a human being can consume in a month. And it was carbon monoxide poison. That's the only thing.
That's what killed them.
Exactly. And that's where they had their scientific proof that marijuana kills brain cells. It's like, you know.
And then you got the addictive nature of marijuana, right? Because, I mean, marijuana is super addictive, isn't it? Anybody out there that smoked it knows. I mean, you can't go, 15 minutes without that stuff. Get out of here.
But, you know, as anything else, though, but you got to be honest about it, Joe, though, was with anything, any kind of medication or anything that's out there, you know, people can do it habitually. And when they do anything habitually, no matter what it is, it's not good for you. It really isn't. But, you know, exactly. If you're talking about as far as doing that habitually, as far as anything else, you know, but sometimes as far as on the levels of habitual use, sometimes people in pain who need pain management and they need pain medications, or they need to eat every day, but they have no appetite because they're on AZT treatments and stuff like this.
I'm all for people. Hey, you want to smoke it up, because according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, CDC, did you know that marijuana is less addictive than heroin, cocaine, alcohol, nicotine, or even caffeine? Oh, get you some of that. But it's still bad, right? It's still bad. How about this? How about dispel for me the myth that marijuana is a gateway drug?
Oh, I know. It's like, what's the first thing that anybody ever did? They didn't smoke weed. Was not the first thing they did.
You cracked open a beer.
No, exactly. Cigarettes, beer, you know, that was the things people did. And the thing about it is like, you know, when you're young, you're rebellious anyway. So when people tell you this thing is bad for you, you're gonna be doing all this stuff, it's bad for you, it's gonna kill you, you're gonna be robbing. And then when younger generation sees that they do smoke some weed, and it's like, oh, bullshit, you know, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, then they're thinking like, okay, it's okay to do some heroines, because they saying that this ain't no, you know, nothing anyway. You know, they're saying that this is bad for you, so it must be okay, because they're lying to you about every damn thing else. So it's no telling.
Yeah, but see, now that's the thing, though, because, see, people are doing it, and believe me, I know folks out there that say, oh, I'll pass on grass. No. I know all you people out there that say that and do another thing. It's okay. See, right now we're dispelling all those myths to make you feel good about coming out of the closet about your marijuana use. It's okay. You're in good company. Everybody does it. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, it's a large group of people out there that, is a midnight toker. And then
Yeah.
I mean, there's times like, like myself, and I smoke. I ain't gonna lie about it, and I do, but I'm not like a heavy smoker like I was, when I was younger or anything like that. But, I do smoke. But, there is times that it's like it comes in like with anything that you do, as far as that. If I was on pharmaceuticals, I couldn't exactly take a bunch of Xanax and drive my truck down the road and handle business all day because I'm going to be, laid
Dude,
out or
Danny's are a
relaxed.
totally different story. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, but, that's what they want you to do because what people say, the main thing that people say is like, only reason why people want medicinal marijuana, look at the medicinal marijuana out in California. A bunch of people go out there and they get it just so they can get high. And I'm sitting there thinking like, well, what do you want them to do? Evidently, they have anxiety, for the most part, of people who like to get stoned. For the most people who like to get stoned and sit back, watch a movie, eat some munchies, they suffer from anxiety. Now, what is the things that they give people in pharmaceutical it's totally acceptable. It's like you hear people that will talk bad about marijuana, but then they have a broken arm or something.
Serotonin uptake inhibitors.
They have some kind of injury, and they end up in the emergency room or something. They give them a shot of morphine or some crap like that, and the next thing you know, that was good. I really like that. And that's okay, but it makes me sick with the people who are really down on it, but will sit there with all of these pharmaceuticals and take those. It's like, nah, man, that's hypocrisy at its finest.
But it's legal, CDC. See, that's the problem. See, it's legal, and it doesn't matter if it's bad for you. Than marijuana. Doesn't matter because it's legal. Never mind the fact that this country was founded on the principles of personal liberty, of individual sovereignty, and the fact that your body's your property. Our rights in this country come from the Creator, but they're also derived from property. The idea that you own your body and you should be able to do with your body or put in your body whatever the hell you want to do. Problem is, you suffer the consequences if you do something bad, and we've been used to in this country to get that bailout, if I do something bad, well, I don't have to pay the medical bill or I don't have to do something like that because it'll be picked up for me. And that whole socialistic mentality comes into play, and then the greater good, well, we do this for the greater good. That's why we make this illegal, for the greater good. When really it's not for the greater good at all. It's awful. We got to go back to our roots. And our roots are, look, if somebody wants to smoke marijuana, if they want to take it medicinally, if they want to do anything like that, it is their choice. I don't know what the heck the whole problem is with this. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to find out that marijuana is so much better for you than alcohol, that it's so much more versatile. Hell, man, have you ever had a pair of hemp jeans? They last forever.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
last forever.
As far as material, yeah, and then you look what they did, after in 1937 they came out with the marijuana, the Tax Stamp Act,
Stamp Act, yeah,
right, and then all of a sudden during World War II, what did they do? They pushed that aside so that they could, have, produce hemp. Yeah. For the war effort,
because it was superior.
Exactly. And I'm telling you, that's when the time when the German scientists came over. It was a lady, as a matter of fact, that came over, and she had isolated the synthetic version, which went to DuPont, and DuPont came up with things like hemp made a particle chipboard that rivaled steel, which was the biggest thing at the time. The rival steel was a big thing. Now she comes over, she isolates, all of that to make, Kevlar, which is, rival steel, of course, more strength than steel, and made all the fire retardant stuff that our firemen, wear, and all of the ropes that carry, that catch the jets on aircraft carriers and like all of this stuff and the Teflon and all this stuff. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, you know, when I worked up at Dusty Ducks was the name of the place, you know, duck cleaning service. And my friends were doing it over the summer. And I was like, man, I got to go past DuPont. You know, I've been researching them. And as soon as I walked in there, I was just like, wow, this is a big synthetic hemp factory. It had the strands and spools and just like whole big, huge, you know, thousands of square foot, you know, space of just all of these spools of this synthetic, strands of things that they made, everything that they did. And it was amazing. It was very eyes wide open at that time, you know, and I didn't even really know the medicinal properties other than, you know, it's been around for thousands of years, you know, other than that and not, you know, dealing with like, patients and stuff like that, which I did in later years. But as far as industrialized, I was like, wow, no wonder. And I tried to call, Hearst III back when I was in college, and this was like, when I first went to college, and it was 93, maybe 94, and when I was doing my first paper, and I tried to, the Hearst III, and I tried to call him out in California because I wanted to interview him about this very thing. Of course, you know, I never got no contact or anything like that, but I really want, exactly. You know, I didn't know it then. I thought I could call and I'm going to talk to this guy and he going to tell me something, you know, 'cause back then, you know nothing, you know, we had the microfiches at the time where I was going through, and I seen a Reuters article from somebody who I later in years in 2002 found out that the guy got fired after he wrote that article, and he wrote it about the whole, I didn't even know that until years later that, but it was like going through microfiches, and, you know, and that's how you used to do it before the internet and everything. But
hey, I got one more thing for you before we end the show. I think this is very important to note. You know what the single most dangerous thing is about marijuana? I'll tell you what it is. It's the fact that it's illegal in a lot of places. And let me tell you why. Because when it's illegal, who sells it? Who sells it? It's your underground, your black markets, your drug dealers. Yep. And, you know, that can result in a long list of serious punishments for those arrested and prosecuted for its use.
And you see the commercials. You see, on that note, Joe, you see the commercials out there. I mean, throughout the decades, they would have like this person sitting there telling you their personal experience. And you know, anytime through even my days at YouTube, you know, over the years, anytime I talk about it, people tell me like, well, I know this person, he got on marijuana and all this stuff, and it ruined his life. And I'm like, well, why did it ruin his life? And, you know, the commercials say, you know, I got kicked out of my home, I got this, I got that, you know, I lost my job. And I'm sitting there thinking like, well, you know, you lost your job because you had marijuana in your system. Your parents or whoever found out you were on marijuana, they kicked you out of the house. So yeah, I don't think it was the marijuana that ruined your life. I think it was the legalities of it that actually ruined your life, because if we were talking about something entirely different, this wouldn't be the fact.
Absolutely. And again, it comes down to personal responsibility. You know, the fact is that, you know, no one forces somebody to take that drink or whatever. You have to do things responsibly. You know, there's plenty of people out there that work and are functional alcoholics. Hey, if that's the way you want to roll, whatever.
And they're right. It's just like guns.
Yep.
It's like just because somebody flips out and goes out with a gun, which is an inanimate object, I got to hyphenate there, people. An inanimate object that has no function other than the person that uses it. Somebody flips out and goes out and does something. They don't blame us. Do not blame us, and don't blame every single person that has a gun. Don't blame everybody that smokes weed or drinks or anything else for this stuff, because there's a lot of people out there, the majority of the people out there, as a matter of fact, that this doesn't happen. These are really isolated incidents.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me somebody who smoked a bud and went out there. And I know there are, because I have seen, you know, if you go in Oakland, you go downtown Oakland, you know, you go some gangster stuff, or you go some mafia stuff, or you go some, you know, anywhere where that kind of stuff is going on, somebody might smoke a joint and go out and kill somebody, but the weed, had nothing to do with it. The gun had nothing to do with it. It was the person. It's violence. It's a big difference, and people don't want to accept that reality out there. You know, that's why they continue going on. You know, it's a bunch of stoners. Well, guess what, man? If we had a world of stoners, we wouldn't have to worry about crap, because nobody's going to do. I mean, if it was the stoner, you know,
right. And think about this too. You know, in a country that was founded on the principle of no victim, no crime. Look at how many people face fines and jail time, probation, mandatory drug testing, loss of driving privileges, loss of student aid, asset forfeiture, any sort of revocation of like driver's licenses or professional licenses.
Right. Oh, if you're a crane operator,
forget it, you're done.
But if you're bagging groceries at the grocery store and they drug test you and you got weed in your pee, I mean, come on, man. What you gonna do? Put the wrong cans in the wrong bag? I don't know, man. But if you're out there, you know, you don't want somebody who is, and it's the same thing. It's not like it's weed. You don't want nobody out there on some pharmaceuticals out there. Right. Doing heavy machinery or something. When they're under the influence of that, you don't want them out there doing it, because yes, there is a chance of something, but you're bagging groceries at the grocery store. You can't get a job because you got weed, and I mean, get out of my face. That's
I know, man. Well, that's the thing. But again, you know, do you want a doctor cutting you open? You know, that's one of the, would you go under the knife with a doctor that just smoked a big spliff? No, you know what? And I wouldn't go under the knife if the guy just drank 10 martinis either.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
I tell you what, I would take the guy who just.
Oh, he'd be relaxed as hell.
I know, and he's going to take his time and do the job right. Other than somebody who's straight-laced, who is all worried about, like it's a meat market, getting you in and out. And next thing I know, I left some hemostats up in your body and sewed you up. What the hell is wrong with that kind of shit?
You got the doctor that had a late-night binge the night before, you know, went out and partied hard. And he's all hungover. He's cutting you open. He's got the shakes, you know. Oh, man, I don't feel so good. Yeah, that works out real well. You know, so that's the thing. The arguments just don't hold up.
No.
Period, end of story. And you know what?
But thanks for coming out.
Things are coming around.
Oh, man, thanks for coming out today, Joe. We're running out of time.
Oh, man, good to be on, brother.
Oh, man, but guess what, guys? Joe Joseph and Johnny King is getting ready to come up on the Freedom Lake. Right next, and then it's the Truth Warrior with David Whitehead, followed by the Staunch and Tyranny with the Staunching Brothers, Jim and Jeff, rounding it out with Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. I'm Kenneth Webb, along with special guest Joe Joseph, and this has been Change the Channel on True Frequency Radio. I'll catch you guys tomorrow, same time, same place, and I'm out.